Welcome to What It Takes, a podcast built to provide valuable insights for people just like you. Here we discuss industry-specific details on what it takes to navigate a journey of professional success from those that have already done it. We're not here to be vague. We're here to get down to the nitty-gritty of it all. Today, we'll get down to the nitty-gritty of what it takes to build your own handyman business with our guest, Steve Merrill. Steve he's born, I have to ask Steve this here soon, but born in Merrillville, Indiana. And we'll talk about that in a second. Raised in Ogden, Utah. He's interested in hunting, fishing, watching movies. Love to talk about that. I've heard a lot from Tom about some of the things you do on the side. Has a wife and 2 kids. He is, just so you know, he's Tom's brother-in-law, and he lives currently in Leonard, Texas. He's had other business ventures as well, construction, landscaping, and he started Revival Construction and Carpentry in November 2021. He has 3 employees working for him and grosses just under $400,000 a year. And we're so excited to have you on as our very first guest, Steve. My first question before we get to anything is Merrillville, Indiana, named after your family?
It is not. I wish it were. It is not.
That would be pretty cool. I'm not going to lie.
I mean, was everybody born there? What a coincidence. I mean, did you guys all come from there or just you?
No, me and my baby sister. So I'm one of 4, and my 2 older sisters were born in Pontiac, Michigan, and me and my baby sister were born in Merrillville, which is just, for everybody who doesn't know, it's just south of Chicago.
Okay, I feel like everybody doesn't know, so thanks for clarifying. I've never heard of it, so thanks for clarifying. But sounds big. Yeah.
How is it spelled? How's it spelled? Is it Merrill, just like you, Steve?
Merrill, Ville.
That's why I've never heard of it. I saw it. I was like, that's got to be, they got to have started that town. That had to be them. But
no,
I guess not.
I have done the family history work to go back and see, and we definitely did not.
I'm telling you what, maybe we could do a takeover. Show up. Hey, this guy's in Merrillville.
Yeah. It'll be a hostile takeover. I'm in.
Well, thanks so much for being with us. Our very own first guest to What It Takes. We're so excited, and like our intro states, we're here to get to the nitty gritty. Tom's told me a lot about you. We've had side conversations, and Tom and I have talked business the last 4 years now, going on 4 years. And he's mentioned you a lot in our weekly calls and talks. So I'm excited to really get behind Revival Construction and Carpentry. And our first question, what we think, or what we want to know from you, is what led you to want to be a business owner? What led you to not want to be an employee, but be a business owner instead?
Yeah, that's a pretty loaded question in the sense that it could be offensive to ex-bosses, but really for me, it came down to my background. What I studied in college was professional sales. You know, I started out working in door-to-door sales right after coming back from an LDS mission, and then got into business, working in B2B sales. And so really my whole professional career has been full cycle sales, going from nothing to calling people on the phone or literally knocking on their doors and asking them for money. And what I've found is I got really good at asking people for money, but then as the salesperson only made a small or relatively small percentage of the money that I did all of the work to go out and get. And so it just translated into me being a very bitter employee, in the sense that, you know, you get that little bit of entitlement that I went and generated all this money from nothing, and I may only get 5%, 3%, 10%, 20%, when really I did 50 to 100% of making it come into fruition. So
that made me think right off the bat. I'm in the middle. I'm towards the end of reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Have you read that before?
I have not.
Okay. So the experiment, basically the premise of it is, and the author, he had 2 dads. He only had 1 dad, but his dad was a government employee, worked for the man basically his whole life. And then his rich dad was his best friend's dad. And his rich dad owned a bunch of, at the time, he was kind of small time in Hawaii, small time businesses, but he was adding those assets, more and more business into his portfolio. And he wanted to learn. And his dad said, hey, if you want to learn how to make money, go ask Mike, your Mike's dad. He's like, Mike's dad? He doesn't have that tiny house in the car. He's like, go ask him. And so he goes and asks him. And he says, if you want to learn how to become rich, come work for me. And so he makes, that's all he tells them. And he makes them work for him for $10 an hour. And this terrible, monotonous job. And it takes him, I think, like 4 weeks to quit. And Mike, his friend, was like, oh my gosh, I thought you were never going to ask. Like, finally, your dad or my dad said you're going to want to quit. And that was passing the first test. And that was really to show them and start a standard for their life. You don't want to, the difference between employee and owner.
Yeah, you don't want to work in those circumstances under somebody else.
Yeah. And they already saw they were working 10 cents an hour and they weren't selling, but they were at a convenience store, dusting, cleaning, and seeing all these things sold, hundreds of dollars an hour. And they're like, holy crap, like we could be doing some of this. And so anyways, your story reminded me of that because I'm in the middle of that book. And I think that was an incredible insight. And for him to have those two very contradictory dads, if you will, in his life. But that revealed to him why, he wanted to be an owner, not an employee. Go ahead.
Well, and Steve, you've kind of gone back and forth between working as an employee, being an entrepreneur, or almost the entire time, at least I've known you, near a decade here, you've always had at least maybe something on the side. Would you say that the primary reason that you were always trying to jump out of being an employee is because of that kind of financial distance between the owner? Like not being able to pocket as much? Was it the financial drive?
Yeah, I would say, and we've had this conversation in the past. A couple of drivers for me, one of the main driver being financial. I mean, as much as I'd love to say I'm super passionate about remodeling homes.
Super.
It's so passionate. Like nothing's better than seeing a nice hardwood floor go down. There are things that I would rather do, like hunting, fishing, and all that. That being said, so the financial is important, and when you commit, it really does show up, and that has been very evident in my time doing this. But the other thing is, I've always looked at it as there's several types of wealth. There's monetary wealth, there's time wealth, there's relationship wealth. That's kind of the way I've always internalized them, and trying to balance those wealths, those riches, in your life, the things that you really want, is something that I would say is most important to me. Having the freedom to spend time with my family, to go work on projects around my own home and do things that I want to do. When you work a 9 to 5, you just really sometimes don't have that luxury. Or I guess the way to say it and articulate it is the choice is not yours. You may have a really awesome boss. You may have really flexible work hours, but the bottom line is the choice is not yours. If at any point you disappoint, they can fire you.
And
they
you
can
have bills to pay.
You.
Yeah, let you go.
And that's your livelihood. You're now in that toxic, hostile environment for however long-term or short-term it is. And you're tied. You're bound down. And that getting rid of that to focus on the wealths, the riches of what I want to accomplish with my life is what I would say is the main driver. And financial is one of those pillars.
I feel that down to my bones because me and Tom talk about it all the time.
Yes.
I'm in a 9 to 5 for sure. Like I'm in one where I'm behind my desk on the phone. My boss is my dad, so he's all right. Kind of a terrible guy, but no,
James,
he's awesome.
James, we love you.
No, he's great. So it's a little different situation, but I've always worked where I've been at the will of somebody else. That could happen anytime. Now is a little different, but it's definitely a 9 to 5. And me and Tom talk about that, the different freedoms we want to chase all the time, and finances have to be there so you can have that freedom, but you also the relationship freedom and the time free, waking up, and of course you got to provide, but doing what you want to do when you want to do it. And I think we all want to provide. If we just got up and sat around, did nothing for the most part, I feel like we would feel a hollowness inside. And so of course we want to work, but not having to, it's a different feeling. I haven't experienced yet. We're working towards that, but haven't experienced yet.
Well, and I think too, right, you said the void of like work, right? I think we all want to work, but work on what you want to work on, right? I think I brought up Elon Musk on our last episode. Dude works nonstop, it seems like, but he loves what he does, right? So I think that's huge, Steve, right? Freedom of time, freedom of relationships, and financial freedom. Financial freedom definitely opens up a lot of other freedoms, right? When you can pay for all the bills, you can take the 2 weeks off, or you can take the week off and take the family, things like that. So,
and sorry, Tom, if I can interject, and not to bash on 9 to 5s, because I have a 9 to 5, and we're gonna have people in here, a lot of people that have 9 to 5s, and they might feel, on the flip side, they might feel the burden of ownership if they weren't in that 9 to 5, if they did not have somebody taking care of the business side of things, and that might be their comfort and security blanket. I've seen people like that. They fear ownership. They do not want to be the owner, and they want to be really good at what they do. The cog in the wheel, that is, if you take that cog out, it's going to be shaky without them. And that's their security blanket, that they don't have to worry about the other things, that they feel like they're working for a good machine and they're a cog in there that's really necessary and needed. So there is that flip side that we'll talk about. So I don't want to smash completely.
Yeah. And if I can, I don't want to veer off your schedule, but one thing I can say, just in my short time having done this, I had an employee, one of the first employees I brought on, that full-time took the jump, started to work with me, and didn't like it. I mean, I wasn't in the point where I could offer a salary or, even a consistent hourly pay. It was contract work, and it was consistent. I mean, they were making great money, but because it was contract, it was pay upon completion of jobs. They had to ride that wave that I, as a business owner, have to ride. Where, as an example, there may be a month where I'm billing $30,000, $40,000, $60,000 a month, and the next month I may only bill $7,000 a month. And so, you've got to learn, when you have $60,000, to not spend it all, because that next month, when you're now setting yourself up for all these bills with all this money you're making, it doesn't come in, and now you're chained down by other restraints. And so, riding that wave has its own, and I call being a business owner a wave, because there's no consistency at all.
You're trying to build consistency, right? But for what could be a very long time, there could be extreme, waves.
And I'm sure it depends on the industry too, right?
Oh, absolutely. And also, just for any listening, where I'm at, I'm only in this a year and a half, and so this is still a relatively new venture. It's been doing great, and it's been providing for not mine, but multiple other families. But it's not like this is 5-10 years in, where we've got 30, 40 people on staff.
Yeah. You've got a billing department at that point, right?
So that's good, and leads me to next question: is what made you choose the industry you did?
Yeah, honestly, it was. I'm relatively young, and so it was. The barrier of entry was low, and I had the skill set. I've always been very, very much a go-getter and good with my hands and using tools. And so it's not hard to get started. It's very low investment, and it was something that I could achieve, and I wanted to break off and do something on my own. And so it was that first step. It's evolved. I mean, really the real answer to that question is, I don't know. I mean, it started out as a handyman. I haven't been doing quote unquote handyman work for the last 5 to 7 months.
So do this for me then, Steve. Rewind to that year and a half and give me like the 30-day thought process you had before making that jump where you quit your last job. And you said, I'm going to jump in. I know at first you started doing handyman stuff, right? You started kind of your own brand, On the Fly Handyman, which is a different name than what you have now. But you started On the Fly Handyman. Give me that 30 days before you made the jump. You're sitting at work. What's kind of going through your head and why you made the jump, right? Obviously, we kind of understand why maybe you chose the profession you did. You're young. You're good with your hands. You've been very handy, always building and working with your hands. At least I know you very well, but mechanic when you were younger. But give me that first 30 days before you made the jump, and then give me some of those first few steps, what it took to get into it.
Yeah, so I would say it's pretty relatively comparable to anyone who decides to go full-time on a quote-unquote side hustle. So I'm working full-time. I had my office. I was down in downtown Dallas, commuting every day from where I live, which, Keaton, for you may not mean much, but for Tom, he knows where I live versus downtown Dallas.
It's a big
that
difference.
Line between is very far. And so, I'm sitting here driving 2 hours to work both ways.
Oh my goodness,
And I'm in my office thinking, this sucks, not even the job. I liked the job. I was good at the job. Just getting to the job sucked. And so I'd heard of a platform. It was a spam call. Honestly, I answered it because that's how boring my job was. And they were like, hey, are you looking for leads for the construction industry? And in my mind at the time, I was like, absolutely not. But again, I've got nothing better to do all day, so tell me about it. And they go through and shared with me their process, and that this is a company called Angie Leads Home Advisor, very big company.
Angie's List purchased Home Advisor.
Yeah. So they're one of the
so Angie Lead Home Advisor. Yeah.
Yep. And I ended up pulling the trigger on it. I asked my wife. It was only $300 or $400, and they're like, we'll send you. I can't remember, so don't quote me on this, but 10, 15 jobs. And, you pay this $350 up front. We'll send you these jobs. You can, they don't guarantee that you'll get the jobs, but they'll send them to me. And at this point, this is where On the Fly Handyman began, because I had to come up with some sort of a company name. And at this point, I'm sitting in a desk and I get these leads, and, I love birds. And so, I was like, okay, like we'll get there on the fly, something quick.
Can we find you can we find On the Fly Handyman, Dawson, if there's a logo somewhere? Would we be able to find a logo?
One if you'd like.
I don't want to tear you off from your story, but keep going. Like you came up with On the Fly, you're getting these, and it sounds like they're leads. They're not jobs necessarily. Like, hey, this person is interested in looking for somebody.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nothing was a guaranteed job. It was really somebody is looking for a TV to get mounted, some kind of honey-do list type.
Okay. With no honey to do it.
Yeah. No honey to do it.
Okay.
I need someone to come hang a shelf, mount a TV, put a ceiling fan on my, change my light to a ceiling fan.
Right. But you're working full time at this. You're giving me the 30-day. You're working full time. When are you making time with all that commute?
Yeah. So I would go, for obvious reasons, I would only accept jobs or leads in the downtown Dallas area, because that's where I was all day. So during my lunch break, right after work, before, sometimes if I got off work at 4:00, traffic is worse from 4 to 6. So I'd go find something to do, because I could actually, if I left at 4:30, I'd get home at 7:30. And if I left at 6, I'd get home at 7:50. So it just worked out that I would go find something in the downtown Dallas area. And I would only do 1 or 2 jobs that I could get. And at this point, I didn't know how to bill or anything. So I was probably the cheapest one out there. And like, because I was getting jobs left and right. And I was like, man,
people were like, point, $15 to install new floors.
Exactly. So at this point, you know, and we can talk about pricing, you know, if that's something we'll talk about later, but
definitely
didn't know how to do it. Just trying to figure it out. Never really been in 100% on my own in this industry. And, ended up, you know, making it wasn't much. It was, I think the first couple weeks I did it, it was $1,500 or $3,000 week 1. Week 2 was something similar. And all of a sudden, you know, I'm 2 weeks in, 10 days in, thinking I just made $3,000, $6,000 doing things that literally took me 20 minutes for 15 different people. And it was fun. It was, I'd been in sales for so long, sitting, and Tom can attest to this, you know, having known me longer, but sitting at a desk, drinking soda all day, getting fat and
getting chubby.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it was refreshing to be up on my feet, walking around.
Oh yeah.
Using some power tools, feeling like, you know, there's some pride when you get some nice power tools. You feel like a man. And
you got to do like the Tim Allen grunt. What's his grunt? What does he do?
That's right. I mean,
yeah, tool time. Okay, sorry.
I don't have to. I got to a point. I left corporate America. I don't have to cut my hair anymore. You know, it's growing, and so that's kind of where it started. And from there, I made the leak. It was only 2 weeks. 2 weeks after starting, I quit my full-time job.
Wow.
And started dedicating more time. And what I found was, you asked for 30 days. We're 15 days in. What I found was when I had all that extra time, I was able to take bigger jobs, which when I'm only working lunch break and an hour after work, was unable to do.
Well, let me ask you this. So you talk, and both you and Tom talked about your background and basically having this skill set already. And when you say this skill set, what would somebody need that would start something like this, being on Thumbtack, Angie's List, whatever, being a handyman? And I know you've evolved that into something when we'll get into more of what you're in now, but what would you say they would need? What skill set would they need? What tools would they need to get started? Like to do those.
How much money did it take you to get started? Yeah.
Yeah. All that.
Yeah. There you are, Steve, on the Fly Handyman LLC. It still exists. Is that 4.9 stars? Look at you, brother.
Hey, look at that.
You're right, man.
But yeah, what does it take to get started? It takes, honestly, I could get on a real big sidetrack about tools I'd recommend, but at this point,
no, don't get me into the tools recommend. Well, yeah, maybe tell me the
briefly.
Five top tools.
I'll be very brief.
Five top tools.
I'll be brief.
And one's not a hammer.
Yeah, I'll talk power tools.
Thank you.
The hand tools, go get your hand tools, you know, your pry bars, your hammer, all that crap. But what I'd say you need is, to make money, a circular saw, a skill saw, depending on what you want to call it, a oscillating saw or multi-tool, a reciprocating saw or sawzall, five's tough.
Doesn't have to be 5.
Because the other two are
drill.
The drill and impact driver are going to be your 4 and 5. I mean, those are probably your 1 and 2, but that would be my top 5, which is going to be a lot of your starter kits, you know. So skill saw, sawzall, drill, driver, and oscillating tool. Man, that oscillating tool, game changer.
And how much do you think? I'm sure you're loyal to a brand. All of us, you know, bleed one color or another. So what color do you bleed?
So you guys may not recognize it, but Flex is actually that's actually all the tools I use.
Oh, okay. I did not recognize it.
They're a little bit new. They're the main competition in quality of tools, as their biggest competition is Milwaukee.
Okay.
Okay. So the two, what you want to call titans of the industry as far as just market share is going to be Milwaukee, DeWalt, and probably Bosch. But then you get all, you get your more readily available
Craftsman's,
rigid Craftsman. Yeah, exactly. That's
Ryobi.
Flex right there. Ryobi's
okay.
Home Depot.
Yep.
Yeah, so Flex right there. That's what I use, and I just have recently invested a lot of money into all their tools.
So,
But
so yeah, how much would you say to start? Just a rough estimate. So it doesn't have to be this set. It could be, your Ryobi or generic, whatever generic.
So
what would you say it would take to start, dollar wise?
Low end $400, high end $1,500.
So not much at all.
No, not much at all. Yeah, $400 to $1,500, and that'll give you between entry level or professional level, which is what I'd say I'm using now with my employees. Is you get those $1,500 tools, and I promise that'll evolve to very quickly.
And let's say someone jumps on Angie's list like tomorrow. How soon do you think they can get a return on their investment? $400. How soon do you think they can make it back?
A week.
A
day.
Okay.
A day. I mean, a week if you're slow. I mean, I paid that $400 and I made that back on the second job.
Okay. And so far we have invested, right? So we'll just say primo high end, $1,500 worth of tools. And then was it $400 to start in Angie's list? Was that what it was? Did you say?
Yeah. 350 or 400. Yep.
So we're around $2,000 to start. That's all we need. And like you said, if you're slow, making that back quickly within a week, within 2 weeks.
$2,000 in a week is, so to give you an idea of just to go, let's say we're going to install one floor, right? You're looking around $3.50 a square foot. You got a 1,500 square foot area house. You've made all that back and then some profit, one job. And so really depends on what you're getting into. All the tools we just listed, you could easily accomplish that job. Let's say you're going to go and install a door, which is very much where I started. There was a long time where I was tempted to just change my company from on the fly handyman to on the fly door installation service. I mean, I did many doors. And you can go install 4 doors a day. Each door is $500. And there you go. Your investment's done day one.
And again, and I probably added on to this question earlier, but what was your background? Did you grow up in your household working all the time? Did you do it as a youth? You worked for somebody in a construction company? I mean, how did you gain the skill set? And how did you gain the skill set?
That's a good question. And I wish I had a well thought out answer for that. I worked as a mechanic. That's how I paid for my LDS mission. So I've always been very handy with tools. I mean, I could tear apart
tinkering
together.
You
exactly,
tinkered a lot.
Yeah. A lot of the skills, the carpentry skills, I would say as I've been doing this, been getting better. I'm not one to say that the quality of my work a year and a half ago was what it is now.
So did you ever have the fear going into a job? Like, oh my gosh, like I accepted this job. Like, please don't be looking over my shoulder right now. Like watching YouTube videos in the car before you went to the doorstep. Like
as soon as I ventured out of the handyman, install a light bulb, hang a TV, as soon as I ventured out of that into home remodeling, I was in way over my head. I mean, I was in YouTube University longer than some of these full-time college students. And
wow.
Yeah, it was, I lived in YouTube. My wife thought,
hey, YouTube's a beautiful thing. I love YouTube, man. You can learn so much from it.
Amazing.
Wealth of knowledge
that can create wealth for you. Yeah. I mean, it was, and now one thing that's funny is you do obviously get your preference and your personal experience. And I will also say that there are so many things on YouTube that are just not
Trash.
good to do.
You're like,
Just absolute bad advice.
don't install
Yeah,
that way.
I saw one the other day. It was like, great advice to keep mosquitoes away from your house. And it was like spraying WD-40 around all the window seals.
Oh
and
my.
everybody was like, and the comments, there's like, I'm a professional painter. Do not do, you know.
Yeah,
And I almost
do
bought
not
it. I was
do
like,
that.
look, William, look what we can do. We can do it. We got WD-40.
Now,
It's
I'll
so
tell
cheap
you,
too.
I'll tell you a story because it's relevant to the question you asked. I didn't have a lot of experience in construction before having started, but it was a lot of trial and error. And one thing that I don't know if you want to say I'm above average at is I have absolute no shortage of confidence, which can sometimes be very bad for me. But that being said, I think I can do anything and everything. And I remember this is back in March. I remember having taken a job. It was a siding job. And I was up in Sherman, Texas. And I started working on it. And I realized 3 hours in, I have no idea what I was doing.
What was the job? What was it? What
It
were you
was
doing?
It was a cement board siding, hardy board siding.
Yeah, hardy plank. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so I was changing, and it wasn't like, let's get all new hardy board inside the whole house. It was fixing hardy board siding, which I'll tell you what, that's way harder.
I was about to
It
say, I feel
goes-
like that's
it
harder than
goes something-
replacing. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. It goes something like this. Snap. Oh gosh, dang it.
Well, and the other thing I didn't realize, and I've said it several times just here in this little story,
Yeah.
cement board, it's not wood. And at the time, I'm pretty new into this, so my tool collection is not very diverse. So I'm using wooden saw blades to cut through cement, and it was just not working. And it was terrible. I was snapping blades, my saws. I wasted probably all $500 in tools right there. And so I know that they had a cement blade for my circular saw? Nope, didn't know that. So I just went through like 9 wood blades for it.
Why won't this
You're
work?
You're showing up at Home Depot and they're like, "Sir, you've come back 3 times now for the same blade. All right, what are you trying to cut? Just give me the wood blade."
Yeah,
Do you have
well,
a
and the
sturdy
funny
pack
thing
of
is,
these? Yeah.
the funny thing is, it's not even called a wood blade. It's called a 24 tooth demo blade. And I was like, yeah, I'm trying to demo the crap out of this. Didn't exactly. Yeah, I wish it said wood. I'd have been like, oh, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that being said, just did not work whatsoever. So I just was busting it, trying to cut the angles. I was way in over my head. And it got to a point when that stress was built up. I was up on a ladder trying to fix their fascia. And I was just not paying attention, just like, and I straight up on the back in their back porch, this was my saving grace, fell off the ladder. I fell off the ladder from their roof down to the ground. And I had so much stress and anxiety and adrenaline at this point that I popped right back up for sure. Damn it. I mean, my leg, I still have a scar on my shin, and I popped right back up. They come out because it was loud. I mean, I have a metal ladder. It lands on their deck. I'm glad it didn't break their window. And they come running outside. They're obviously, their number one concern is
are you okay? Insurance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They come running outside, and I was just, I was like, guys, I am so sorry. I just refunded their money and left. I refunded all their money and was like, guys, I'm sorry. So I finished what I was doing. I got them all brand new fascia because that was wood, and I did know how to cut that. And got them all brand new fascia, fixed their hardy board so they weren't exposed to any weather element. I'm never going to leave anyone in a bad position. And then I refunded all their money, which now having much more experience and being able to confidently do all these things, totally did not need to refund all their money. That was a stupid business move on my part. I should have refunded some of their money, but I was so young, so nervous that I had my wife drive. It's an hour from my house. I had my wife load up our 2 kids, drive out there to bring me the cash to give to them so that I could feel good about myself and leave. And so there's learning experiences like that. What?
Very good character. That's really good character of you, man.
Yeah. And so there's experiences that, it's a lesson that is learned and not forgotten, but, kind of wish I didn't have to go through it.
So do you think people going into that job, they're going to do Angie's List, Thumbtack, whatever it might be, or handyman work? Would you recommend they take risk like that, take on jobs that they're not fully confident in and try to learn as they go? Or should it be one of those, hey, really try to take on what you can and learn before you go jump headfirst into something?
I would say the best thing to do is make sure you're filling. We're not going to play a percentage game, but the majority of your time with things that you're confident in.
Mm-hmm.
That way you can confidently be making money, but always leave time available to take risk and grow. And so it may only be 20% of your time that you're doing things outside your comfort zone. But by doing that, you're now protecting, you're shielding yourself. Because remember, being your own business, your own company, you're on that wave. You may not have any income next month. So you've got to shield yourself. You can't only take a job that you don't know how to do. That's too much risk for you and your family. Again, I don't know everyone's position, but it was for me at the time. I mean, when I started, I had 2 kids, and, I've got a mortgage and whatnot. And so, take risks. Don't be afraid to take those risks, but minimize them by filling your time with some things that are secure.
I love that counsel and advice. And if I can, Tom. So I love that.
Very good. Very good.
Because that's great, because you can't get confident in something unless you do it a lot, and you start to do it, and your story there shows it. And maybe you weren't ready for that, but if you hadn't, I'm sure there are a lot of other jobs you jumped into without that confidence as well. But you built that over time. But I love that. I feel like you could get in a hurry, you could get discouraged if you 100% or 90% filled your time with jobs you felt inadequate for. Whereas you go and hang that door, you're like, man, I feel good. I'm a man. Got my, you boost that confidence. You're like, maybe I could do this. Yeah, maybe I could do this. And you take on that 20% job or whatever, like you said, doesn't have to be a finite number, but making yourself uncomfortable, stretching yourself, because that's the only way you're going to get good in that. And that's how I was going to, that led me to my next question for you, is how you talked about that bridge from handyman, on the fly handyman, to now revival, construction, and carpentry. How did that gap get bridged? How did you make that jump, and what does it mean? What jump was it?
Yeah. Really, it was a jump of perception. The perception of a handyman is, there's that, I always completely botch this phrase, but jack of all trades is you guys could probably say it better than
if you're a jack of all trades, you're a master of none, but it's better to be a master of none than something. Yeah. Something.
But nobody even goes that far. They say you're a jack of all trades, you're a master of none. And
that's right.
There's that connotation of cheap and not high quality. And that wasn't the image, that wasn't the company that I wanted to build. That wasn't the reputation that I wanted to have. Is I can do everything okay. And so I wanted to have a premium product, because frankly, I value my time. I wanted to bill at a outrageously hourly, high hourly rate, where I enjoy spending my time doing what I'm doing, because it's very rewarding. And I found that wasn't attainable as a handyman. So that's where I re-imaged and brought on new people that had different skill sets and strengths that I didn't. And we became Revival Construction and Carpentry. It was kind of a two-faced question. What changed? What really changed was, one, the quality that we would deliver, and two, not that it was poor quality before, but we really spent a lot of extra time on our jobs, which we do now. It's our current company. And I feel we deliver a very high quality product. I mean, if you're going to hire us to go build cabinets or to build something for you, we're not using dimensional lumber from Lowe's or Home Depot. We're going to go get oak. We're going to go get walnut. We're going to go get pecan. I mean, you're going to be paying for it, no doubt, but you're going to have real hardwood. We're not going to leave you square edges. We're going to round them off. We're going to chamfer them. We're going to, you're going to get all the details that you can only expect to get paying a premium price. And so that's really what changed.
Yeah, top of the line quality. Give me the steps though, Steve. On the fly handyman, you had your LLC going. Did you have to close that down, open up a new LLC with Revival, and then I think you took on a business partner, right?
That's correct. I did. Yeah.
So walk us through the kind of the fundamental steps you had to take to do it, right? So, hey, had to close down my LLC or just kind of put it to the side, refile. How did you file? Where did you file? Texas, etc.
Yep.
Give me that nitty gritty.
All in Texas. So the steps for filing and starting a construction related company in Texas is easy. There's no licenses. There's nothing. All I had to do was simply do it. I went through a company. I saw an ad for, you know how Facebook and Amazon and all these things are. When you talk about something, they start sending ads. Always
listening.
And so I started getting hammered when I was talking about businesses by InkFile. So I used InkFile, registered my LLC, got my tax EIN, all the, the legal things that I need lined up to get it registered. The biggest difference between having my Handyman LLC, which was just me, is that LLC is actually taxed as a sole proprietor. So really easy to do my taxes. It's just as if, I'm a sole proprietor. When you actually do an LLC with a partner, one or more, you now get taxed as there's a couple choices, but what I did was I chose to be taxed as a C Corp and
smart man
and go that route. And so a little bit of a different setup, but ultimately the same thing. I used InkFile. I just went through the steps I was familiar with. And sorry, my computer's on my leg, so if it rattles,
No, you're fine. How much was InkFile for you? How much did it cost you on InkFile?
It ended up costing around $1,100 all in.
Okay.
Wasn't a crazy investment. Yep. And so just went in there, and it really is. It's kind of false advertising. They say it's $0.
I was about to say that $0 is eye catching. Yeah.
It's for sure
eye candy.
For sure not $0. It probably is $0, but then you end up paying for all the services. You want whatever they want. Do you want us to file get your EIN for you, your tax number? Yes. I don't want to do. I'm going through a service because I don't want to do anything. And
so there's add-ons.
Yeah. I actually don't know what they're saying is free. I genuinely, maybe it's just
air. They're saying air's free. Yeah.
Yeah. But it ended up costing me all in it was right around $1,000 even, maybe $1,100. And that's all that it was. And
that was to form your LLC and your EIN and all those things. Right.
Everything. It created my bank accounts, my EIN,
your bank account. So did you choose? You got to choose like a bank to work with too?
I did. Yep.
Wow. And they did it all. InkFile did it all for you.
Everything for me.
Wow. All right. Shout out the InkFile, even though, sketchy advertising, but sounds like a pretty good service. We've gone through setting up a bank account was tough enough for me and Tom. That was a bit of a hassle, the setup.
Might have been worth $1,100 to have a bank account set up.
Yeah, we went to Wells Fargo directly, and that there was lots of paperwork, but Anyway, we had another one and it closed down. You remember our first bank account?
I did.
First
Yeah,
business bank account.
we used a bank that was online only. They had no brick or mortars,
I forgot their
and
name.
they advertised to small businesses. I just remember them being purple, like their logo was like a purple.
You can't
They
remember their
didn't
name.
forget you guys. You were their only
All I
customer.
know is they were.
We might have been. We really might have been.
They were like, dude, we just got this new hot LLC. They're followed with us, dude. They're gonna start bringing in cash. We're gonna start making money as a bank. And next thing you know, they got a check for like $6, and they're like, dude, we gotta let these people go. They started charging us account fees, and they were like, dude, $2.50 a month. That's too much. We got to
Who
go.
was that? But that's pretty cool. So yeah, that does more than just start your LLC. And then you're saying filing in Texas and doing what you do doesn't take any licenses. What step does being a general contractor, or is there like a step between you? Are you right under a general contractor, or are you considered? I mean,
I'm a general contractor.
You are. Okay. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, code, like, do you just have to know the code and meet code there in Texas? I don't know how you guys do in Texas. There's no code. You just leave.
You just come out.
You leave hot
just
wires
plot
and
it?
puddles and like what? I don't know. No one cares.
So the funny thing is there is no licensing. Texas is a little crazy. So
Yeah.
in a past
It's
life,
kind of like the
I
Wild
actually-
West.
I did this in Utah for a while, and I did have to get a general contractor's license. This is where
Okay,
I
you
first
did.
started this. In
So
Texas,
most will out of the, lower 48, most will have to do that.
oh yeah, but Texas is very friendly for construction. Yeah, you can do whatever you want here. But that being said, each city has their own code that you have to
Yeah,
follow
sure.
and file permits through. So you can get in trouble if you don't know that, but it's always best before you start any big projects to
Is there-
But let me cut there, right? Although you didn't have to license as a GC, the permit process is big. You do have to file permits when you're doing big stuff or home remodels or improvements, which typically, at least in my experience, so I thought, Steve, you correct me if I'm wrong, the homeowner files for that permit. Is that right? Or are you guys doing that for them too?
I oftentimes for my customers will file for the permit.
Okay.
It can sometimes be a sticky process, and honestly, at first I would let the homeowners file for their own permits, but then I found out that they really have no idea what they're doing.
Get a little lost.
Well, they use the wrong words, right? For instance, in the city of McKinney, there's a big difference between building a deck, building a pergola, building a gazebo, and
Mhm.
And so,
Mhm.
but whereas a homeowner will use a lot of those things synonymously, which they are not. And
No.
so I end up it ends up being a lot of phone calls to me. The city says I can't have any gazebos. That's correct. I thought that's what we're doing. No, we're building a pergola. Well, it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. And so I end up
Very
just,
different.
let me call them, authorize me. I'll get you taken care of.
So you go to Inc., your business partner. Who's your business partner?
His name's Adam.
Adam. So you're with Adam. You guys go to Inc. together and file together. Is that what happened, or did you go to Inc. first and then add him on?
Inc. file.
We did it
Inc.
together.
file. Okay.
It's
Okay,
Inc. file, yeah.
Did it together under everything under your business name.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
How about, okay, so what did he bring to the team that you didn't have? You mentioned that earlier. What did he bring?
Well, you know what? This is going to sound really bad for me, but he
Good.
brought
Everything.
he brought all of the detail and quality.
How did you find him?
Actually through our church.
Okay. And so, okay, go more into that detail and quality then.
So his dad he's my exact age. He's my age. His kids, same family situation. So we became friends just by the fact that our
Naturally.
kids were friends.
Sure.
Yeah, very naturally. And he at the time was working in a sales job for Traeger. And so he would travel all over the country and sell Traeger grills and smokers. I just came to find out that his dad owns his own construction business. He grew up from being a little boy working with his dad in their family construction business. And he is a very, very good carpenter. He does amazing woodwork, has a great shop on his property, and that's one of his hobbies.
So it's easy to see why you would bring him in on this. The
Yep.
flip question to your
why is he
point,
bringing you in?
yeah, why? what did you have to sell to make that happen? Yeah, like, and you talked about your sales pass. Obviously, that's probably something natural for you. But what? Just your friendship, or I mean, what did you say? Like, hey, let's go. And I don't know if you're 50-50 or what, but
your friends, how do you
make it
convince
work?
them to make the plunge, right? Yeah. How do you look at them and be like, hey, why don't you take this big risk with me and start?
Well,
a company?
especially when he's like expert and you're way more knowledgeable than I'm sure many, way more knowledgeable than me in this field, but it sounds like he had definitely a leg up on you there.
Oh, 100%. And we've talked about it all the time. In fact, it probably was not more than a month ago. We got in a little bit of an argument, because going into business with someone is kind of like a marriage. I spend more time sometimes with him than I do my wife. And that being said, there's some adjustments where I've been the only one running the business aspect. In other words, every dime that goes through the business goes through me. Not because I hold on to the money and even care, but simply because I started it. That's the way it's been. That's just the processes that we've implemented. Because many of the processes we use for invoicing, collecting money, paying employees and subcontractors, we're using the same processes that I used on the fly Handyman.
And I want to hear the rest of this answer, but while you're on that point, what processes do you use? What programs do you use for your billing, for your invoicing, for all of that, and for your accounting? What do you use?
And if you say paper, I'm going to lose it.
Yeah. So for estimating estimates, invoices, and financing, I use a system called Joist. For accounting, I use QuickBooks. I'm not that, innovative. I don't have anything cool. I just use QuickBooks, and I do have an accountant.
QuickBooks is cool. They're a cool company.
Yeah, so I use QuickBooks. It's just hooked right up. That was actually from another shout out to InkFile. They set me up with a QuickBooks account that links to my bank account. So from the beginning, I've done nothing. It just does it.
Okay, people, we get it. Go to InkFile. They'll do everything for you. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Remove the zero and just add 1,000 and you get plenty of people.
And it'd be better marketing because that's what you're really going to pay. But yeah, so Joist, that's exactly what I use.
Yeah.
Joist, QuickBooks, and and Company Cam. That, believe it or not, Magic Man in the background. You're going to want to pull this up. This is a game changer for anyone trying to get into this industry.
Dawson's our Magic Man in the background.
Yeah, shout out to Dawson because he's on top of it. I'll tell you that much.
I'm telling you what,
but
he knows it all.
Company Cam is huge because I tell you what, I have so many photos in my phone of the most random. Like, I've got photos of ugly baseboard that nobody, when someone wants to see my adorable, cute children, I have to go through, rotten subfloor and a bunch of nasty stuff. Company Cam is a system we'll use where it actually separates all of our photos and organizes it into jobs and gets it off of my phone, which is such a heaven sent.
Like, it pulls it from your photo app?
Yep. And then I just tie a PO and it goes right.
Do you ever find like a picture of your son in there with a hammer somehow? It just pulls that over because it thinks he's working?
So far, no. It's been really, really awesome. I think what it does is it geotags where I'm at. Yep, that's it. Company Cam. I think it geotags, and it knows.
Awesome.
It's kind of how technology is these days. It's an intuitive system where it knows when I'm not at home or for.
Yeah, it knows when you're away.
Is this
from
free?
No. Unfortunately, nothing's free.
How much do you know? How much this is off the top of your head?
I do.
Monthly fee, nothing.
I could look it up. I know it's not much, but
is it over $100 or under $100 a month?
It's under $100 a month. Man, you guys get expensive. Okay. When you get into construction, everything's cheap. I mean, Joist, for instance, is, I don't know, $36 a month. even QuickBooks is only $102. I mean,
QuickBooks is
most
employee
expensive
based, right? So the more employees you have, the more expensive QuickBooks get. But
yeah, because QuickBooks is only $100 and something for me a month. So yeah, my most expensive cost is insurance. I say you don't need anything. One thing, shout out to anyone, don't ever do construction, handyman. Don't ever go to someone's house to do something without insurance.
So I'm in the insurance industry. That's what I am in. That's my 9 to 5. So let's talk about that. Very important. Obviously, I know it's important. Help customers.
Keaton's about to write you a policy, Steve.
I feel it coming.
I don't write in Texas, so no pressure there. But talk about that. Talk about your expenses. Talk about, I'm sure you have general liability, workers' comp. Do you insure your tools? I don't know. Talk a little bit about that. I'm sure do you have trucks under the business name?
I just have my one truck I put under my business.
Okay. Yeah. Talk about insurance and the cost of that. And we're getting close to end of time here, but yeah, talk about those insurance costs.
So yeah, the insurances that I have are general liability, workman's comp, obviously my auto insurance, I have errors and omissions, and
you cover your tools. Do you have personal property?
Oh, and there it is. Property? Yeah. And I've got, it's not much. It's like $10,000 or $15,000 for equipment.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. And then do you know what that runs? You said that's your largest expense, and I believe it. I talk to a lot of angry people every day that tell me that this is the most expensive thing they have. And I'm like, yeah, well, sucks to suck. All right. So just give me your money. But yeah. So
I'll tell you both, actually. For on the fly handyman, it was actually only like $160 a month.
Handyman policies, I write a bunch. Very affordable. Yes.
Very affordable. So as soon as I switched to Revival Construction and Carpentry, where I needed to put my big boy pants on, it's under $500. It's like I don't know if it's $467 or $427, but right around that.
And that's not terrible from what I hear. And as you grow, that number will grow too. So anybody listening out there, as one thing you're quoted at and that you're asked, at least, I don't know how it is in every state, but one thing they ask for are your gross sales. And as your gross sales increase, as your employees increase, that amount, your insurance, obviously you're in more places, you're doing more jobs, you're a larger risk to these insurance carriers. So that number will go north as you grow, that number grows.
And Steve, you're bundled under one person, yeah? Like bundled with one provider for all these insurances?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Okay. Who do you use?
I don't remember their name, to be honest.
That's okay.
I went through. Sorry.
I see a lot of advertisements for not the big box names lately, right? My Facebook's been popping up with like Next Insurance for small businesses, stuff like that.
So
that's why I was interested in who you're using.
We write for Next Insurance, and they are incredibly helpful and new age. There's a lot of these older companies that are bigger than Next, but they still do lots of paperwork. Next doesn't. They're awesome. So if you want ease and convenience and sometimes price, Next is great.
So I went through Next, but Next is a pretty big one for the industry right now. But I went through Next, but Next isn't my insurance provider. I'm not sure who it is, but Next is who they're kind of the broker, and Next is who I went through.
Oh, Next is the broker, not the actual underwriter.
I guess it depends where you're at, because where I am, they are the actual writer, the actual insurer. But to that point, and I guess Dawson's bringing up next here, if you are shopping insurance, like Steve said, and I think this is what a lot of people don't think about, that is going to be one of your largest expenses. Go shop it. Shop it with take time. That's what I would suggest. And we're a broker, we're independent, but shop it with multiple agencies. Go find an agent that's really reputable in your area. Do some research. That is worth the research, because a claim gone south can really screw your business in a hurry. So you want to have an agent that can go the bat for you. You want to have a reputable company. You want to be insured correctly. Sometimes you'll just look for the lowest number, and you want to know your coverages, know what you're covered for, because that can tank a company quicker than a lot of things. I heard this recently in Utah. There's a pest control company. They were spraying some kind of chemical, and because of this crazy weather vortex that came through Utah, it tore apart one part of the chemical and enhanced the other part of the chemical, and then it was really dry, and then it killed everything. Instead of just killing some things, anything it touched, it killed. So it killed hundreds and thousands of dollars of vegetations and city parks and like this crazy thing. And luckily they were insured well, but if they weren't, they would have really been, their company would have been gone. All their assets, everything, would have been gone. They would have to start over. So side tangent, boring, but that is what I do. Insurance, it's a big deal. So study up when you're starting your own handyman or general contractor, whatever you're going into.
Sure. And shout out to James if you want to put a commercial on here from Nationwide. No, we can put a plug in. No, but insurance is huge. And a lot of people have that on the back of their mind where they don't think about it until the incident happens. And they're like, oh, I should have gotten insurance. So good to hear you have it, Steve.
So last couple questions, we'll get you off here. We're out of time. But if you were to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
If I were to do it all over again, man, that's a hard one because I can only look at what I know now. And what I know now is what I do right now is way more profitable than handyman. So if I were to do it over again, I would just jump right into where I'm at now. But the more accurate way to say that is if I were to do it all over again, I would spend more time looking for a mentor to be able to start in a place that will let you skip all the learning curves of starting it on your own by yourself.
And Adam sounds like that he's probably been a great asset to you in that case. So if you had found him earlier, I mean, and could have made that work earlier, would you have?
100%.
On the flip side, any regrets? Like, hey, I wish I wouldn't have done maybe something.
Honestly,
wish you would have bought Flex earlier.
I wish I would have started earlier. I wish I would have had the courage to go out on my own and take the risk to invest in myself earlier.
Man, I love that courage. Like, so many people want to make the jump, and either somebody's going to kick them in the butt to make them do it, or they better build up some courage to do it. And it takes a lot. And
your regret, I mean, you're so young. I'm sure you're our age or close to it or younger.
No, Steve, tell him how old you are. He's not close to our age. Steve, how old are you? I'm going to ask you because I'm your brother-in-law.
I'm 27.
Oh, well, he's close. You know, he's not far.
Are you kidding me? Close.
5 years.
If I could go rewind 5 years off my life.
But my point is, you're young, and your regret is you wish you had gotten some of that time back that you wasted. Mm-hmm. And how valuable is time? Man, it's so valuable. And if we can learn these things quicker, and like you said, if you had a mentor quicker, you would be even further ahead than you are now. I think you're on a great track. I love this first episode. I know Tom thinks a lot of you. I'm so glad you could come on short notice, and we appreciate you and sharing your story with us. Some of the nitty gritty that we asked you about, and some numbers that some people might like to keep hidden. We really appreciate you sharing that. So thank you for your time, Tom. Anything?
No, Steve, appreciate your time. For listeners in Texas here, especially here north of Dallas, because I know a lot of your work is Dallas and north, McKinney, Melissa, Anna, all the way over to Aubrey, even Denton. And now you guys are heading even north, maybe to the Oklahoma border. How can people get a hold of you and your website? You got a website we can kind of plow up here, tag along with this podcast?
I don't know if we have our new website up and going since it's still January. We're working on all that stuff. We actually just filed.
What's it going to be?
It's going to be Revival. It's going to be revivalconstructionandcarpentry.com.
Okay.
And the best thing I can say right now is you can just shoot me a text or give me a call. If you want to put my number up there, it's 469-943-0116.
And our thousands and thousands of viewers are going to be hitting you up. Yeah, so you might regret putting that number up there, but
you might start getting a lot of calls here, bud.
And there's so much, and I hope we get this out there, and I hope people take use of you or make use of you as a mentor, like you said you needed. And this has been over an hour now. There's so much more I still wanted to ask you. And so I'm sure if there's somebody out there that's wanting to make this a similar industry plunge, they'll probably have questions for you. So we appreciate having you on to help answer some of those questions and bridge that gap, that knowledge gap. And then also being willing to put your number up there. That means a lot. And if anybody's listening, wanting to make this jump, please make use of Steve.
Absolutely.
Steve,
and thank you guys. I mean, it's one of those things I'm passionate about. I think not so much the construction and carpentry. I'm good at it. I like it, but taking that step and buying back your time to have the freedoms that you want is something that I'm passionate about. And I love the whole idea of what you guys are investigating, what it takes. I'm trying to learn it myself. The last year and a half, I've been doing it full time, and there's a lot of learning. So I'm looking forward to more episodes and listening to your guys, tuning in and listening to your guys' podcast. So thanks for taking the time to do the research and share with others.
Cool. Steve, thanks for being on What It Takes, man. Dawson, close us out, dude.